everybody, it's Elisa with Simply Southern Recipes by the Rocket City Girls, and as everybody knows, we have been under the social distancing, basically quarantine, for the last 3 weeks. So Scott and I grow our own blueberries and we have a freezer full, so we decided that this would be a perfect time for us to put good use to them, make something to get us through all of this. We're trying to use what we have in our home so that we're not hoarding and going and overbuying like a lot of other people have been doing. So we're going to make jumbo blueberry muffins. To get this started, we got 3 cups of flour, 4 teaspoons of baking powder, a half a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of cinnamon, a half a teaspoon of nutmeg, 2 large eggs. It calls for granulated sugar, a cup. I use the stevia because I'm diabetic. A cup of milk, a half a cup of coconut oil, a teaspoon of vanilla, and 1.5 cups of fresh blueberries, which ours are fresh, but they're frozen. You preheat your oven to 425, and let's get this thing started. First things first, gotta spray our tin. That's funny because I just sprayed my husband instead. Alright, so three cups of plain flour. Alrighty. Now, 4 teaspoons of the baking powder. That's 1. 2, 3, 4. Alrighty then. Now, a half a teaspoon of salt. Now, a whole teaspoon of cinnamon. Ooh, I love the smell of cinnamon. There we go. Half a teaspoon of the nutmeg. There we go. 2 large eggs. Now, 1 whole cup of milk. Uh-oh. Now, a half a cup of the coconut oil. Let's see, and a teaspoon of the vanilla. Okay. Last but not least, a whole cup of sugar. Now, I use the stevia, like I said. Because of my diabetes, but it measures the same as regular granulated sugar. Now, what I do, ooh, that's sweet. I go ahead and stir this a little with a wooden spoon, and then I put it into my KitchenAid and let the KitchenAid mix it all together, no more than a minute, because you don't want to over stir it. I have stirred it a little bit. Now I'm putting it in the KitchenAid. Mix it up real good. Don't mix it too much. You don't want to overwork it. You want them light and fluffy. We've got it all mixed up. Now to add the blueberries. I fold mine in. I don't like them all broken up. And that's what'll happen if you try to use the KitchenAid or a mixer to fold your blueberries in. They'll get all busted up. So let's get this all folded together, and then we'll get it into our tins. Okay, everybody, they're done. We put them in a 425-degree oven for 5 minutes, and then we turned it down to 375 and continued cooking for another 25 minutes. And this is going to be part of our Sunday breakfast. We'll get back to getting our sweet potato, salmon, hash together in a second. Since we're on this quarantine and social distancing stuff, I have gone to my pantry and I'm trying to use up stuff that I had, you know, we just call them good old staples that we always keep around. But this is called sweet potato and salmon hash. So to get started, I diced up 2 large sweet potatoes. We're going to fry those. Got 1 large red bell pepper and a small yellow onion. Salt and pepper is all you need. Now for the grease, I put in just enough to cover the bottom real good. And then I added 2 heaping tablespoons of bacon grease to that. It's going to add a lot of depth and flavor to these vegetables. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so what I did, I diced these up last night, and I put them in water and I let them soak overnight. I like to get rid of all that excess starch. And then what I did is I put them in a salad spinner this morning and spun all the excess water off. Then I laid them on a dry towel. So what we do is we start with, like I said, the oil and the 2 heaping tablespoons of bacon grease. And we add these first and get them flying, because they take longer than the onions and the peppers and the salmon do. So let's get these going, and then we'll come over here and get this other stuff started. We have a can of salmon. I put it in the bowl, and then I go and I start removing all these little bones. I don't get the long ones. Those usually end up disintegrating. But like this black skin right here, Get rid of that. And there's some more of those bones. So I'll get this chunked up. We don't want it fine, we want it chunked up like that. And this goes in last. You don't want it cooking for too long. And I usually put it in after I take the potatoes and the peppers and the onions out and do this separate in the same grease. They're starting to look nice and golden fried. So this is the time that we add the onion. I usually make my onion a little bigger, but my husband doesn't like big chunks, so it's little. Okay. Now, the red bell pepper. This is a very colorful meal too. Very appetizing. Now, when this is all done, we'll drain the grease and we'll put it into a Corningware dish. Then we'll get started on our cheese gravy that goes on top. Looks done to me, so we're going to put it in our colander here and let it drain. Next step will be putting in the salmon and letting it fry for just a little bit in the same grease. Alright guys, let's get this salmon in here. Try not to mess with it too much. You just want to kind of put a hard fry on it so it stays kind of chunky for your hash. Now, I'm going to clean my bowl up, and then I'll be able to put that back in my bowl. Alright, our salmon has got a nice little crust on it now. We tried not to mess with it too much because we want it kind of chunky. Okay, let's see. All right, now let that drain. Now we're going to get our cheese gravy going. That's what we put on top of our salmon hash. Now, we haven't put the salmon in yet. We're fixing to do that. We got to let our grease cool down just a little. But, that's 2 tablespoons of butter. Next, I'll add a good tablespoon of all-purpose flour. Need just a little smidgen of salt in that. And let's get this all stirred up. You don't want to add your milk until you get this all incorporated really good and kind of cook some of that flour off. You don't want it tasting like flour. So once you get all of this cooked down to almost there, kind of mash up your little pieces of flour that you got going. Because we want it smooth. Okay. That's a good look right there. Now, cooking that flour off just a bit. There we go. Now, it is time to add some milk. Now, I like to add about 1/2 of a teaspoon of some ground mustard. And a couple of shakes of some good old hot sauce. Oh. Made a mess. I'm famous for it. Okay. Now, we had a big, huge block of some cheese that my mother-in-law gave us. And I am cutting it up. Now, you just have to do this according to, you know, how many you're feeding. But this is about the size I'm talking about. And I'm just cutting it into cubes. It'll melt better. Here's another section of it. There we go. Now once this gets all melted down and thickens up, now if it gets too thick, add more milk. But that's our cheese gravy. Alright, so this is the sweet potato and the onion and the pepper so far. We're putting it in a casserole dish. Okay, spread it out real good. Now, anybody that hasn't tried this, you need to. And if you can do it with good fresh salmon, it's much better. But you do what you have to in cases like this. I'm salting it down. I'm adding a little fresh cracked pepper to it. I got my cheese gravy going. Okay. Now, got to get the salmon. Start adding our salmon to this casserole. Well, it's really not a casserole, but to the dish. There we go. Now, let's get some eggs going. Next thing on the agenda, fry a couple of eggs. Now, you can do your eggs any way you please. We like ours a little more cooked. We're not real big into the runny egg scene. So, these 2 eggs will be going on top of our hash. Alright, eggs are cooking. Now, right here, hash. There's our cheese gravy. Drizzle this all over. Now, hold on just a sec. We're not done. Chopped green onion. And we top it with our fried egg. To get this quarantine weekend started, this will be our third weekend. I am ready for a Bloody Mary. So, I do that's 1 jigger. Two jiggers. Okie dokie. Now, tomato juice. Just good old plain tomato juice. Then, I always add just a squeeze of lime. A little seasoned salt for taste. Spice it up. A little Worcestershire. I'd have to say that was about a teaspoon's worth. Probably about a teaspoon's worth of Tabasco too. And a little squeeze of some horseradish. Now, I'm going to mix it up real good. Make sure I get all that horseradish good and incorporated, because we don't want to burn our noses. Okay. Now, I'll pour it over here into this pitcher, just like that. Let me get me some ice. I'll be right back. There we go. Good mixed up. Pour this back in here. There's our Bloody Mary. So, this is our beautiful sweet potato salmon hash. Fried eggs on top of it, the cheese gravy, the chopped up green onion. We got a little sriracha for a little cha-cha-cha. Our jumbo blueberry muffin right there. And our lovely Bloody Mary. So, this is how we're spending our time, planting our garden, trying to keep ourselves socially away from everybody so that maybe this coronavirus can go ahead and do what it's going to do and leave. And until next time, everybody please try to be safe. We'll keep everybody in our prayers. And I hope you have a good weekend. And we hope to see y'all back here soon for some more great Southern recipes. See you later.